You've never met your employer in person. The money clears in Zurich within 90 seconds of each job. And the only rule is there are no rules. Because when you're this far off the books, the law simply doesn't apply. You don't have a job title. You don't have a business card. You have a burner phone that activates once every few weeks. No caller ID, no voicemail. Just a set of coordinates and a 6-digit file reference. You get paid more per month than most people earn in a decade. Your family thinks you consult for a private security firm, and in a way, that's not entirely wrong. You fix problems, expensive problems, for a man whose name you've never been allowed to say out loud. But before you get to that man, before the money, the paranoia, and the moment you realize there's no way out, you have to understand how it starts. It always starts the same way. Level 1. The recruitment. A former colleague from your old unit calls you out of nowhere. You haven't spoken in 2 years. You separated on good terms, but you drifted. Different lives, different choices. He doesn't ask how you are. He gives you a number and says 7 words. He fixes problems for people who can afford it. That's it. No name, no context, no details. Just a set of coordinates and a 6-digit file reference. You get paid more per month than most people earn in a decade. Your family thinks you consult for a private security firm, and in a way, that's not entirely wrong. You fix problems, expensive problems, for a man whose name you've never been allowed to say out loud. But before you get to that man, before the money, the paranoia, and the moment you realize there's no way out, you have to understand how it starts. It always starts the same way. Level 1. The recruitment. A former colleague from your old unit calls you out of nowhere. You haven't spoken in 2 years. You separated on good terms, but you drifted. Different lives, different choices. He doesn't ask how you are. He gives you a number and says 7 words. He fixes problems for people who can afford it. That's it. No name, no context, no details. Just a set of coordinates and a 6-digit file reference. You get paid more per month than most people earn in a decade. Your family thinks you consult for a private security firm, and in a way, that's not entirely wrong. You fix problems, expensive problems, for a man whose name you've never been allowed to say out loud. But before you get to that man, before the money, the paranoia, and the moment you realize there's no way out, you have to understand how it starts. It always starts the same way. Level 2. The vetting. 3 days in a hotel in Vienna. No phone, no internet. Someone slides meals under the door twice a day. You're told it's a consultation process. The people who come to speak with you don't introduce themselves. They dress like management consultants. They ask questions that sound harmless. Your childhood, your most difficult decision, what you think about loyalty, what you think about necessity, and they watch your face more than they listen to your answers. One of them shows you photographs, not gruesome, just mundane. A man at a cafe, a woman at an airport, a child's school. He asks, "What do you see?" You describe what you see. He nods, writes something down, and moves on. These aren't random questions. This is structured psychological evaluation, the kind of deep behavioral profiling that private intelligence firms and elite contractor operations have used for decades. They aren't screening out people who would refuse a difficult task. They're identifying people with enough emotional control to perform one without falling apart afterward. You pass everything. You answer correctly. You stay calm. You feel invincible. What you don't understand yet, what takes months to sink in, is that passing isn't a reward. Passing is a sentence. They don't recruit people who want to do this. They recruit people who could and don't need to want to. Level 3. The first briefing. A manila envelope arrives at the hotel. 1 photograph, 1 page of text, 1 account number at the bottom. There's no last name on the brief, no job title for the target, just behavioral patterns, known locations, a daily schedule, and 2 lines at the bottom that describe what the target has done, framed in the language of consequences, not crime. You notice the document never uses certain words. It uses resolution instead. It uses outcome, matter, event. This sanitized language is intentional. Documented intelligence targeting protocols, including procedures revealed in declassified Senate Intelligence Committee reports, show how carefully chosen language shapes the psychology of the operator. If you call something a problem that requires resolution, the brain processes it differently than if you call it what it is. You study the photograph for a long time. You think, this is a problem, this is a file, this is a resolution. You don't think anything else. That's exactly what they designed. The word resolution does a lot of work in this industry.
Level 4. The first job. The job isn't what you imagined. There's no drama, no confrontation. You follow a man for 11 days across 3 cities. You document his schedule, his contacts, his habits, his weaknesses. You never make contact. You never get close enough for him to sense your presence. On day 12, you submit a report. On day 13, the account clears. $180,000. You sit in a hotel room in Copenhagen and wait to feel something. You don't. This is actually how elite private contractors enter the system. Cases like the Black Cube operation, an Israeli private intelligence firm publicly documented in investigative reporting, showed how ultra-wealthy clients retain off-books operatives for surveillance, information gathering, and pressure campaigns, all entirely outside law enforcement, all completely deniable. The escalation from observation to action is gradual, deliberate, designed to make each step feel smaller than the last. What you notice, sitting in that hotel room, isn't guilt. It's something more uncomfortable than guilt. You're slightly disappointed it wasn't harder. That disappointment is the first real thing they've successfully done to you. The next briefing arrives before you've processed that thought. You told yourself you'd feel something. You didn't, and somehow that's worse. Level 5. The escalation. The briefs escalate over 6 months. Surveillance, then surveillance plus contact, then contact plus pressure, then something that sits in a gray area you choose not to examine too closely. Each step is small. That's the design. The psychologist Albert Bandura studied this exact process. He called it moral disengagement. The way people cross ethical lines isn't usually through one dramatic choice. It's through a sequence of small reframings. Each one makes the next feel proportionate. Each one closes the gap between who you were and who you're becoming. Then one evening, a brief arrives that's different in weight. Literally heavier paper. The language has shifted. There's no account number on the last page. There's a phone number with a single instruction. Call only after. You sit with it for 2 days. On the second evening, you open your laptop. You pull up the offshore account. The balance reads $2.3 million. You close the laptop. You pick up the brief. There's a version of you that would have walked away at level 3. That version is gone. Level 6. The employer. 14 months in, you're given a location. A private airfield 40 minutes outside of a city you're not allowed to name. You arrive at the specified time. You wait on the tarmac. A helicopter descends. A man gets off without looking at you. His security detail doesn't acknowledge your presence either. Not because they haven't been briefed on you, because acknowledging you would make you real, would make this moment real, would create a chain of perception that someone, somewhere, might someday have to account for. You understand the mechanics now. Cases like the Bezos phone forensic investigation, publicly reported by major news organizations in 2020, illustrated how billionaires at the top of private intelligence networks can retain operatives who technically don't exist in any org chart. Private forensics firms, former intelligence officers, contractors whose entire value lies in the fact that they cannot be officially connected to the person writing the checks. You watch the helicopter take off. You finally see the face behind the money. And in that moment, you understand something that changes everything. He knows your face too. This was never anonymous, not for you. The anonymity was always one-directional, always in his favor. He doesn't need to threaten you. The moment you saw him, He owned you. Level 7. The paranoia. You stop using your real name at hotels. You carry 2 phones, 2 identities, 2 versions of every conversation you have. Former CIA officers who've written publicly about life inside covert operations describe this shift, the way apparitional awareness colonizes your civilian existence, the inability to walk into a room without calculating the exits, the trained reflex of scanning faces for intent, the permanent background noise of threat assessment that never fully switches off. Your wife asks why you flinch when she enters a room quietly. Your son laughs too loudly at dinner, and your body runs a threat calculation before your mind catches up. You can't explain it. You can't undo it. You've rewired yourself for a world most people don't know exists. Then, a brief arrives. You open the photograph. You recognize the face. Someone you know. Someone from before. You're given no context, no explanation, no reason. Just a file, in 1 word at the bottom. Resolve. You sit in the silence of your kitchen for a very long time. You think about the word necessary. You think about who gets to decide what that means. Then you pick up the phone. The difference between a professional and a monster is context. And context, it turns out, is something they control.
Level 8. The exit that doesn't exist. You draft the message 3 times. Each time you delete it. You've thought about leaving before. Most people in your position do, eventually. But you know what leaving looks like from the inside. You've resolved 3 retirements yourself. You've read the briefs. You understand the language. The concept isn't thriller fiction. Edward Snowden, John Kiriakou, and others who walked away from deeply embedded covert roles. Their cases are public record, documented in federal courts. All demonstrate the same structural reality. You don't leave this kind of world cleanly. The knowledge you carry makes you valuable while you're useful, and dangerous the moment you're not. Your leverage was always your competence, and competence has an expiration date. A new operative makes contact, young, clean, hungry in the way you once were. He says a mutual contact gave him your name as a reference. You shake his hand. You tell him you'll be in touch. As he leaves, you catch a glimpse of the edge of his brief. Just a corner, just the edge of a photograph. Your photograph. You sit in the car for a long time without moving. You think about a hotel room in Copenhagen. You think about a balance of 2.3 million. You think about the moment you closed the laptop and picked up the brief, and you understand with complete and absolute clarity that you made that choice. That every choice after that was the same choice, made again. Somewhere tonight, a phone rings in a city you've never been to. A voice says, he fixes problems for people who can afford to have them fixed. And someone exactly like you, before the money, before the hotels, before the weight of what resolution really means, says,